Hi guys, Sandy from the Paddle School here. Today we're going to talk about what new players to the game should be looking for with equipment. We've got Toby Borden, our equipment specialist for the Paddle School. What are we going to be looking at today?
So today we're going to be looking at rackets, shoes, balls and grips for new players.
So let's start with the racket. Yeah, our most important weapon for the court. What do you recommend for new players with the racket?
So at the moment there's a lot of new players coming into it from squash and from tennis, and they hit the ball very hard. And they go for something very cheap and cheerful, and then essentially it breaks down. But all the brands have rackets that are just a fiberglass and a foam on the inside, and often players need something a little bit more than that.
So we're not going for the cheap end, and they probably don't need like the premium, the really expensive £300 a racket end. You want to find something in the middle.
Absolutely. You know, those £300 rackets are designed for advanced players and often are super hard and are going to give new players injuries and things like that. So really we recommend something between the 80 and 150 quid mark.
Perfect. And something that is a little bit soft and not too heavy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we got lots of rackets that are in that price range and that are medium, to soft, or also, right weight for a player. But how do we choose between all of these rackets?
I think firstly you have to decide what sort of player you are. Even if you're new to the game, you're going to have a style of play, either being a bit more aggressive with your volleys or a bit more defensive and play a lot off the walls at the back. And that's going to help decide, okay?
So what are we looking for? If you're a more attacking player, you're looking for more power?
Yeah, and
more head heavy?
Absolutely. So you go more sort of a diamond or a teardrop shape that's got the sweet spot at the top of the racket, or if you're at the defensive end, you want something that's a bit more rounded and has a lower sweet spot in the middle.
And often for newer players, the rounder racket is usually a little bit easier, and really a good way is to test them, right? Just to take them on court, have a hit.
I think that's the key thing, and we see loads of people going online buying rackets, and they come to our clinics and they've got injury or they say they don't like it. Try and speak to your coach or your club, get some demos and get on court. It's the best way. And
often players are quite good about sharing rackets. Like if you say, oh look, I like the look of that one, can I just try it? Often players will do that at your club.
Definitely, great advice.
So the next important piece of equipment is the footwear, the shoes. What would you recommend for paddle shoes for new players?
I mean, firstly, you mentioned paddle shoes. Most people don't start with a paddle shoe. They rock up in their running shoe, which is a big no-no. It gives no lateral support and also really slippery on the surface as well.
Yeah, no running shoes. What should they be wearing?
Really, we encourage a herringbone, but if not, just an all-court tennis shoe is good to start, particularly if you're playing on a court that's not too sandy.
And so when we're talking about sand on the court or not, previously, a lot of the paddle courts that went in, so the older courts, had a lot of sand on the surface, and that's where you would need the herringbone because you get more grip. But nowadays, the newer courts, the New World Paddle Tour surface, it doesn't have that sand on the surface, and you could get away with an all-court tennis shoe. So the next piece of kit is the grip. What do you recommend for new players when it comes to the grip?
So firstly, once you buy a racket, it will come with just a standard grip on, which is very small, okay? So if you're a male player or seem to have bigger hands, I'd recommend placing 1 or 2 overgrips on.
Yeah, and this is important to know because in tennis you get different grip sizes, but here they're all the same size. So you need to put the overgrips on to get the size right for you.
Yeah, and again, there are hundreds of different grips out there and different playability. You can get tacky, dry, normal, club, so.
And all the brands have these overgrips. So, I mean, really the recommendation is to put one on, see if that's comfortable, see if that fits, then put another one on if you want it a little bit thicker, or take it off if you want it a little bit thinner. So another piece of kit that is quite useful, it's not essential, but quite useful, is this protector that goes on the top of the racket.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of new players that come to it don't realise these are not indestructible, and as you can see on this racket here, without a protector, you can often chip away at the top, and that's not great if you spend a lot of money on a racket.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those, it will last longer with the protector, but what you do need to be aware is that it will add weight to the top of the racket. So as you get more and more performance, you need to understand that it will add a little bit of weight to make it more head heavy, but also the grips will also add weight to this end. So just bear that in mind when you're working on the balance of your racket. So now let's look at the ball. What do new players need to be aware of when it comes to paddle balls? Yeah,
so essentially it is a paddle ball, not a tennis ball, okay? So it's ever slightly smaller and a lower compression.
Yeah, and one thing to be aware of, a new can of balls, one that's relatively recently opened, the ball will bounce more off the glass and off the ground. One that has been opened a while ago and the ball's become soft, they don't bounce as much. So how often do new players need to open a can of balls?
I would say probably 4 to 5 matches. Every 4 to 5 matches, get a new set of balls out and you'll enjoy the game a lot more.
Yeah, and obviously as your level goes up, then it might be, you might want to have a new can every game at a higher level and anywhere in between. So the last thing to mention is really about protecting the equipment. Yeah, so there you've got your racket in a racket bag. Why is that important?
This is important because we want to protect the longevity of the racket, and again, a lot of people don't realise it's not like a tennis racket. These don't have strings, and if you mistreat them, they're going to break down.
Yeah, and in our hot British summer that we've got this summer, if you leave your racket in the car, that will damage the racket.
Yeah, so it's really important. Put it in its protective case or in your racket bag, and make sure you take it inside after you play as well.
Definitely. And if you want to learn more about how to choose your racket specifically and looking at higher levels, I'm going to put a video that we've done here with Manu Martin, and that will be a good place to go after this.